everybody, it's Teresa. Welcome to my channel. I'm going to be doing a tubular netted bracelet today. I tried to find some examples. This is one that I did and made it into a bangle. Most of the tubular stitches, you can easily put them together and turn them into a bangle. This is done with 4mm beads and seed beads, 4mm fire polish beads, some purple and gold. It makes this pretty little diamond pattern here. That's the netting part. I've got one here that I did that has a clasp on it, and that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to put a clasp on it. I know it's hard to see. These beads are dark, but these are some 4mm bicones and some super duos. So you can mix up the beads. You can use 3mm, 4mm, 6mm. These are a couple of different shades of purple. There's some purple bicones and then some sort of amethyst colored super duos. This is one that I did with 6mm beads, and I'm going to use 6mm beads today, hoping you all can see it better. This I also made into a bangle. This is, I think, 3 different shades of purple in there. As you can tell, purple is a favorite color. Like I've said before, it's not a hard stitch. It's just when almost all bead weaving stitches, the hardest part is getting started because you don't really have much to hold on to when you first start. But it's not hard at all. And I had a lady request that I do a tubular netting stitch, and I welcome any of your all's requests. I want to do things that you all want to see. Of course, I don't want to do things you don't want to see. And if it's something I can do, I'm happy to do it. So let me get the beads together. I'm going to use it. I'll be back. Okay, these are the beads I'm going to be using today. And I'm also using a different camera today because the one I had been using kept jumping around when I tried to zoom in and out. So it might take me a minute to get used to this one. So I apologize in advance if I have any problems with it. I probably would have used 3 different colors to make it easier for you to see, but I didn't have enough of 3 different colors of 6mm beads. And when I say that, my husband says, how could you possibly not have enough? You've got a million beads. And I'm like, well, I don't have every bead in every shape, in every size, and every color in the world. You just think I do. He just doesn't understand. So I'm going to use 2 different colors here. I've got, these are 6mm fire polished in light teal. These are 6mm Potomac beads, pearls. They're in olive gold. And I'm pretty sure I got these when I was subscribed to their box for a while. I got those. And then these are also Potomac, well, they're Miyuki, but I got them in a Potomac box when I was subscribed to them. They're 8-0s, and they're forest green lined. And these are Miyuki 11-0 Durcoat galvanized champagne. And then I have a magnetic clasp here I'm going to use, a little gold magnetic clasp and a couple of jump rings and a couple of wire guards. I've got a little stop bead here I'm going to use to put on the end of my thread like I've done in the other bead weaving videos. I got a couple of size 11 tulip beading needles. I've got my 8-pound fire line in smoke. I'm going to, of course, be using my scissors to cut my fire line. And I've got my chain nose pliers and my bent nose chain nose pliers to put my findings on at the end. And I use the chain nose pliers to flatten the end of the thread so I can get it through the needle. And I think that's all as far as tools and supplies. Let me get some of this out of the way and I'll be back. Okay, I've got some beads poured out here. And I switched out the 8-0s for these dark bronze 8-0s. Those green ones were just blended into the teal beads too much, and I was afraid you wouldn't be able to see them. I've got my needle threaded with my fire line, and I've left about a 10, maybe 12-inch tail there because I'm going to use that to sew my clasp on at the end. And so I'm going to start out I'm going to have to do because I have more of the teal beads than I do of the gold beads. So in order to make it work, I'm going to have to do just kind of a little swirl of the gold beads throughout. And I'll show you as I go. So I'm going to pick up an 8-0, one of my teal beads, an 8-0, another teal bead, an 8-0, and a gold bead. So I've got 3 of my 6mm beads and 3 8-0s. And like I said, if you're using all one color, you know, you just have 3 of your beads and 3 8-0s, or whatever your transition bead is going to be, your crossover bead. So now I'm going to go into the first 8-0 I put on, and I'm going to go through all the beads. And I'm going to sew them into a circle. Try to get my stop bead out of the way. Stop beads are necessary, but they get in the way. Necessary for me anyway. Now I'm gonna go sew back through this several times. I think most people sew through this part at least once, but I sew through it several times because I can't get it to be as tight as I want it to be. If I don't, I guess I'm just not as tight a beater as I would like to be. So I always sew through this part several times. That's another reason why I would use a thicker fire line, like 8-pound rather than 6-pound, because this stitch just needs more structure to keep it good and tight. I'm just going to sew around until I feel like it's tight enough, until I'm coming out one of my 8-0s. Doesn't matter which one. Just, I think I put that stop bead through there 3 times, and it's having a little bit of a hard time getting hit out of the way. Okay, now let's see. Now I'm gonna flip this over because I like to sew away from me. If you'd rather sew towards you, you can leave it like that. You'd be sewing this way, but whichever way is most comfortable for you. So now I'm going to pick up my netting. So I'm going to pick up 4 11-0s, an 8-0, and 4 11-0s. And I'm coming out of this bronze bead. I'm going to go into the bronze bead on the other side of that little gold pearl there. And I'm just going to pull my thread through. And that makes a little, that cups around that pearl. Now this number and size beads and type beads can change. If you're using Tohos, for example, they're just a little bit bigger than Miyuki, so you might have to use 3 11-0s and an 8-0 and 3 11-0s, just whatever fits around there and hides your thread. If you're using 4mm beads instead of 6mm beads, you might do, I have done like 4 15-0s and 11-0 and 4 15-0s, just whatever works. You can even do all 11-0s if you want to. You just have to make sure to have an odd number, because you have to have the same number on this side as you do on this side. You have to have a center bead to be your crossover bead. It's easier when you, especially when you're starting out, to use a different size and color bead as your crossover bead, so that you can tell which one it is easier. So now I'm just going to do that again. I'm going to do 4 11-0s, an 8-0, and 4 11-0s. And I'm going to go from this 8-0 that I'm coming out of into the 8-0 on the other side of that tail bead there, and pull through. And now I'm going to do 4 more 11-0s, an 8-0, and 4 more 11-0s, And I'm going to go from this 8-0 that I'm coming out into the 8-0 on the other side of that bead, which is the first 8-0 I started in on this round. So that's my little first part. That's my netting started. Okay, now I'm going to do my step up. And when I first started beading and I heard them talking about stepping up, I thought, I don't want to do that. That sounds hard. But it's not. I'm coming out this 8-0 here, this bronze 8-0. All I'm going to do is go up these 4 11-0s and come out that 8-0. And that's all there is to stepping up. Now I'm going to cup my netting up here because I'm going to get this into a tubular shape. So I'm going to cut my netting up here and hope you can still see what I'm doing. Okay, now I'm going to put my bigger beads in between these 3 8-0s. I'm going to put 3 of my big beads in between these 3 8-0s. Of course, if you're using all the same color, you just pick up 3 beads and put them through there. Since I'm going to do this little pattern, I need to pick up whatever bead is under the 8-0 I'm coming out of is the bead I need to pick up next. So I have a gold pearl bead under the 8-0 I'm coming out of right now, so I'm going to pick up a gold pearl bead. And I'm going to go from this 8-0, and I'm going to jump over here and go into this 8-0. Just like that. I'll pull it through. And now, this will be easier to see when I get more to hold on to. Now the 8-0 I'm coming out of now has a teal bead under it. So I'm going to pick up a teal bead. And I'm going to jump from this 8-0 over to this 8-0. Now, the 8-0 I'm coming out of now has a teal bead under it. So I'm going to pick up a teal bead. And I'm going to go from this 8-0 to this 8-0, which is the 8-0 I started in on this round. And I always put my needle down and pull it tight because I want this to be tight. So, I mean, it's hard to, this is a pretty loose stitch anyway, but I want to try to get it to be as tight as I can. And that's why I'm going to sew around these beads several times. These big beads, just the big beads and the 8-0s. Sewing around the big beads and the 8-0s. Tightening everything up. And I'm going to end by coming out of an 8-0. Doesn't matter which one, any 8-0. So now I'm going to do the next part of my netting. Okay, now I'm going to do the next part of my netting. I'm stopping every little bit and making sure that my camera's recording because I did a whole big bunch of this and discovered my camera wasn't recording. So I'm trying to make sure I'm recording as I go here. So now I'm going to pick up 4 more 11-0s, an 8-0, and 4 more 11-0s. And I'm going to go from this 8-0, I'm going to skip over this teal bead, and I'm going to the next 8-0. Now I'm just going to do that again. I'm going to pick up 4 11-0s, an 8-0, and 4 11-0s. And I'm going to go from the 8 I'm coming out of to the 8 on the other side of this gold bead. Pull through. Now I'm going to pick up 4 more 11 O's. An 8 O and 4 more 11 O's. And I'm going to go from the 8 I'm coming out of into the next 8 the 8 on the other side of this teal bead, which is the first 8 the 8 I started in when I started this round. And now I'm going to step up. And all that is I'm just going to go up these 4 11 O's right above the 8 I'm coming out of. And the 8 that crossover 8 bead. And see, it looks like I got a knot in my thread there, but I think that's really just the thread is wrapped around itself. And you just pull and that comes out. So that's all that is, although quite often I get actual knots. Okay, now I'm going to put a big bead in between these 3 8-0s. So because I'm doing this little pattern here, I got to look, and I've got a teal bead in under my 8-0 that I'm coming out of, so I need to pick up a teal bead. And I'm going to go from this 8-0 into the next 8-0 here. Just jump over there and go into that 8-0. Now, the 8-0 I'm coming out of has a gold bead under it, so I'm going to pick up the gold bead. And I'm going to go from this 8-0 to the next 8-0. Just jump over that little space there and go into the next 8-0. Now, the 8-0 I'm coming out of has a teal bead under it, so I'm going to pick up a teal bead. And I'm going to go into the next 8-0 up here, which is the first 8-0 I started in on this round. I'll pull that through. And now I'm going to go through all of this several more times to get it good and tight. Going through the big beads and the 8-0s. You just want to go through your big beads and your 8-0s. You don't want to go through any of your 11-0s. Or your big beads and your crossover bead, whatever it might be. Just keep going around until you feel like you've got it tight enough. And then just come out any of the 8-0s. And this is what I've got so far. It makes a pretty little beaded bead. If you want to just make a bunch of these and string them on bead stringing wire, I've done that before. So now I'm going to do my netting again. I'll zoom out a little and see if maybe it helps you to see it a little bit better. I might be too far in. So, and I'm going to try to show you from the top better. So I'm coming out this 8-0. I'm going to pick up 4 11-0s, an 8-0, and 4 11-0s. I'm going to go from this 8-0. I'm going to skip over this teal bead and go into this 8-0. And pull my thread through. Now I'm going to pick up 4 11-0s, an 8-0, and 4 11-0s. And I'm going to go from this 8-0 over this gold bead into the next 8-0 on the other side of it. Now I'm going to pick up 4 11-0s. An 8-0 and 4 11-0s. And I'm going to go from the 8-0 that I'm coming out of here to this 8-0 on the other side of this tail bead, which is the first 8-0 I started in on this round. Now I'm going to step up. I'm going to go up through these 4 11-0s and out my 8-0. Now I'm going to put my 3 big beads between those 3 8-0s here. The 8-0 on this 8-0, this 8-0, and this 8-0. Okay, so I'm coming out this 8-0 and I have a tail bead under it. So I'm going to pick up a tail bead. I'm going to go from this 8-0 and jump over here and go into this 8-0. Try not to get my stop bead all hung up in here. Okay. Now, the 8-0 I'm coming out of now has a gold bead under it. So I'm going to pick up my gold bead and jump from this 8-0 over to this 8-0. You're always going through the 8-0s that's at the top, at the tip of your netting, not these down here, these up here. Now the 8-0 I'm coming out of has a tail bead under it, so I'm going to pick up a tail bead, and I'm going to go in and jump over and go into the next 8-0, which is the first 8-0 I started in this round. And untangle my stop bead. Now I'm going to go through all these, the 6 millimeters and the 8-0s, several more times until I get it real good and tight. And once you get it as tight as you feel like it needs to be, just come out of an 8-0. And now I'm going to do my next part of my netting. And there's really no way to keep it from being, I mean, it's going to be a little loose, it just is. But if you go around and reinforce a lot, it kind of helps it a little bit. And you can kind of see that little gold starting to swirl around there. I'm going to do the next part of my netting. So I'm going to pick up 4 11-0s. And I like these galvanized silver beads. I use them a lot, but there's something about the coating on them that sometimes you can't get through them. I think it stops up the holes or something. And then an 8-0 and then 4 more 11-0s. Now I'm going to go from this 8-0 that I'm coming out into the other 8-0, onto the 8-0 on the other side of that tail bead. Pull my thread through. Now I'm going to pick up 4 more 11-0s. An 8-0 and 4 more 11-0s. And I'm going to go from the 8-0 I'm coming out to the 8-0 on the other side of this tail bead. Now I'm going to pick up 4 more 11-0s, an 8-0, and 4 more 11-0s. And I'm coming out this 8/0 on this side of the gold bead. I'm going to go into the 8/0 on the other side of the gold bead, which is the one I started in this round. Now I'm going to step up, which is just going up through these 4 11/0s and then through the 8/0. Now I'm going to put 3 of my 6mm beads in between these 3 8/0s. So under my 8/0 that I'm coming out of is a tail bead. I'm going to pick up a tail bead. I'm going to jump from this 8/0 over here to this 8/0. Now, under the 8/0 I'm coming out of is another tail bead. So I'm going to pick up a tail bead and go from this 8/0, jump over and go into the next 8/0. Under this 8/0 is my gold bead. So I'm going to pick up my gold bead and go from this 8/0 into the next 8/0, which is the 8/0 we started in this round. And now I'm going to reinforce by going through all the 6mm beads and all the 8/0s. I'm just going to keep going through them until it feels like it's as tight as I want it to be. I hit the camera. I'm just going to keep doing that until I come out of an 8/0. Now I'm going to do my netting. I'll do this one more time, then I'll leave y'all alone. I'm going to pick up 4 11/0s, an 8/0, and 4 11/0s. I'm going to go from the bronze bead I'm coming out of, the 8/0, on the other side of this gold bead into the 8/0 on the other side of that gold bead and pull through. Now I'm going to pick up 4 more 11/0s, an 8/0, and 4 more 11/0s. I'm coming out this bronze bead on this side of this tail bead. I'm going to go into the bronze bead on the other side of the tail bead. Now I'm going to pick up 4 more 11/0s, an 8/0, and 4 more 11/0s. Coming out this 8/0 on this side of this tail bead, I'm going to go into the 8/0 on the other side of the tail bead, which is the 8/0 I started in on this round. Now I'm going to step up. I'm going to go up through these 4 11/0s and out through this 8/0. Now I'm going to pick up my 3 big beads to go between these 8/0s up here at the top, at the peak of each one of these little netted sections. So the 8/0 I'm coming, or the 8/0 under my, the 6mm under the 8/0 I'm coming out of is a gold, so I'm going to pick up a gold. And I'm going to skip over here and go into this next 8/0. Now the 6mm under the 8/0 I'm coming out of is a teal, so I'm going to pick up a teal, skip over and go into the next 8/0. Now the 6mm under the 8/0 I'm coming out of is a teal, so I'm going to pick up a teal. And And I'm going to go into the next 8/0, which is the first 8/0 I started in this round. And then I'm going to reinforce everything by going through that 6 millimeters in the 8/0s several times until it gets good and tight, like I want it to be. And then just come out one of the 8/0s. So that's what I've got so far. And you can see that little gold is spiraling around there like that. So I'm just going to keep doing this until it won't be long till I'll have to add thread, and I'll come back and show you how I do that. As far as the length, when you're using bigger beads like this, it takes up more room on your wrist. So if you normally make a 7-inch bracelet, you might want to go for a 7.5-inch bracelet or something. Give it a little bit extra length because these bigger beads make a bigger round tube and it takes up bigger room on your wrist. So I'm going to keep going until I get to where I need to add thread, and then I'll be back. Okay, now it's time for me to end off this thread and add in some more thread. So I'm coming out this 8/0 here where I just put on my 3 big beads. I'm just going to sew down through my project here. Just going to sew down through the netting. Just make sure that you don't cross over any beads. Just keep sewing in the path that took you here. It's usually easiest to find a thread bridge and tie your 1/2-inch knot next to one of these big beads. So I'm going to go in under the thread bridge here. Well, I said it was easier, didn't I? I guess I won't do that. I'm going to go through this 8/0 and go through under this thread bridge here. And now I'm going to go back through my loop. I'm going to make sure to guide that knot real slowly down between the beads. Now I'm going to go through a few more beads. Go under this thread bridge. Go through my loop. Bring it down really slow. Now I'm going to go through some more beads. Grab another thread bridge here. Go through my loop. Bring my thread through real slow so it goes between the beads. And then that was 3, and I always do it 3 times. So now I'm just going to sew through a few more beads to get away from my last knot. I think I've got wrapped around something somewhere. There we go. And now I'm just going to cut my thread off. And I know sometimes I leave my old thread on so I can remember where I was coming out, but I know I need to be coming out one of these 8/0s here at the end, so I didn't need to do that. I've got a new piece of thread, a new needle threaded with a new piece of thread, and I got a stop bead on it with about a 6-inch tail, so I'll have I can put a needle on this end and sew it back through like I just did that one and do 3 1/2-inch knots. So I'm going to go back here a ways back from where I'm wanting to come out, and I'm going to pull my thread through until my stop bead stops it. And then I'm just going to sew back up through my netting. Until I get up here to where I'm wanting to come out, which is out one of these top 8/0 beads. So I'm going to come out this 8/0 right here. Now I'm in position to start my netting again. So I'll pick up 4 11/0s, an 8/0, 4 11/0s, go into this 8/0, and do that all the way around, and continue on until I get the length of my bracelet. Then I'm going to come back here and take this stop bead off and put a needle on this thread and just sew it back in, just like I did that thread that I just now ended off. So when I get to the length that I want, I'll be back. Okay, I've got the length I want now, and I'm going to put my wire guard on. There's a lot of different ways to end this off. You could put a bead cap over the top and sew it through the bead cap and put your wire guard on. You could use one of those glue-in end caps and put it over here if you have one big enough. I've never done that because I don't trust myself and my gluing capabilities well enough. I'm afraid I'll mess it up and completely ruin my beadwork, so I've never done that, but you could do that. A lot of people go ahead and, like I've stopped here with the 3 big beads. A lot of people will go ahead and do the netting again and then sew the 3 bronze beads just together at the top and close it off and then put the wire guard on, but I've never been a big fan of the way that looks, so this is just how I do it, but there's many other ways to do it. I'm coming out of I put my 3 big beads on and I'm coming out this bronze 8/0 here. I'm going to pick up 4 of my 11/0s, and I probably wouldn't pick up 4 if I was doing this with 4 millimeters, but these 6 millimeters make for a bigger round bracelet, so I'm going to use 4, and I'm going to use an 8/0, and I'm going to pick up my wire guardian. I'm going to go through one channel of my wire guardian, and then I'm going to go down the other channel of my wire guardian. I'm going to hold my finger over it to guide that thread down into the channel of the wire guardian. And I'm going to go back through my 8/0. Pull that down so it tightens those beads up. Now my thread's coming out of this 8/0, and I put 4 11/0s on the 8/0, the wire guardian came back down. Now I'm going to pick up 4 more 11/0s. And I'm going to go over here to this 8/0. And I'm going to pull through. Now I'm going to go through this 6 millimeter and get through this 8/0 here. And I'm going to pick up 4 more 11/0s. And I'm going to go back up through my 8/0 under my wire guardian. And this is loose, but it'll get tightened up when I pull these through. Okay. Now I'm going to go back up my wire guardian. Back down my wire guardian. And back through my 8/0 if I can get through there. And that puts a little, kind of a little triangle there on the end. And now I'm going to go back through one of the sets of the 4 11/0s that I put on here. I'm going to go back through this, the way it's coming out, I'm going to go back through this 8/0, tighten it down. I'm going to go back through this 6mm and the 8/0. I'm going to go back up these 4 11/0s and the 8/0. Back up the wire guardian. Back down the wire guardian and back through the 8/0. And back down these 4 11/0s that I hadn't been through twice yet. And then I'm just going to go back through this 8/0. And that makes a little triangle there at the end of my piece that I can attach my magnetic clasp to here in a minute. Now I'm just going to go through here and sew back down through my project and tie 3 1/2-inch knots and cut off my thread. Just going to sew back through my netting here. And this will sort of reinforce your netting going back through here and tying these 1/2-inch knots. Kind of tighten up your netting. It's going to be a little loose anyway. There's just no way to keep it from being a little bit loose, especially with big beads like this. I'm going to go under that thread bridge, go through my loop, pull it down really slowly, make sure to get it between the beads. Now I'm just going to sew back through some more. Come out this 8/0. Grab this thread bridge, go under it, go through my loop, pull it down really slow, and go through a few more beads. See, this looks really loose here. I'll go through, just go through tightening things up a little bit. Go through this 8/0. Go under this thread bridge. Go up through my loop. Bring my thread down really slow. And then that was 3, so now I'm going to go through a few more beads to get away from my last knot. Just sewing through your netting. And now I'm just going to cut off. And now I'm going to put a needle on this end and do the same thing. And then I'll come back and we'll put our clasp on. Okay, I've got both ends of my wire guardians on here now, and now I'm going to put my magnetic clasp on. Just going to take my jump ring, put on one end and one end of my clasp. Take my other jump ring, put on the other end. Okay, so there we go. Now let me clean up some of my beads and I'll be back. So there it is, all done. It's got the little spiral of the little gold beads going around through there. It's a really pretty stitch, not hard to do. I hope you all have enjoyed this video. Like I said, if there's anything else you all want me to do, if it's something I can do, I don't mind at all. If there's any stitches you want to see or anything, I welcome any suggestions. As always, thank you all so much for joining me today. I really appreciate those of you who have subscribed to my channel and watched my videos and liked and commented on my videos. I have a website where I sell my jewelry. It's Teresa's Handmade Jewelry, and I put a link to it in the description box below in case you're interested, along with a link to my Facebook and my Instagram and my email. If you haven't, I'd really love it if you'd subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're notified when I upload a new video. So until next time, I hope you all have a great day. Take care.